It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. I'm Craig Hoffman. He is Logan Paulsen. Logan, let's talk about a tight end named Logan. Logan Thomas has been a topic of much discussion amongst, I feel like, the fan base even more than the media, because fans look at the contract and it's like, well, you know, he wasn't very good last year. He cost a lot of money. I don't get why they don't cut him. And the reason you don't cut him is because you don't need the cap space. And he might just still be a really good football player. And it looks like so far in camp, from what you've seen, I get the sense he's still a pretty good football player.
Yeah, man, and he's doing a really nice job. It looks a little different, I think, than a lot of fans would like, where it's, you know, the guys at the position are Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, and George Kittle, guys who are like super twitchy, explosive guys. Logan's not really like that. More of a long strider, kind of basketball, kind of weaving in and out of coverages, but has a really good feel for zones, has a really good feel for man, is gigantic, and uses his size at an extremely high level to beat players, right? And he's been able to do that. Him and Sam seem to be on the same page. Like, last week in the OTA period, running a dig, sits down in his own ball, runs a swirl on Benjamin St-Juste, which is kind of a corner to a comeback kind of angle. So like you're running a corner and then you come back on that angle and you run it for spacing reasons. And he beats Benjamin St-Juste, kind of bodying him out, gets the ball, runs a choice the other day, big body catch. I mean, he's had so many catches. He's been probably the most consistent offensive player this entire period. And it's because of he's utilizing his size. You can tell they've kind of pulled the reins off a little bit. One of the things that Travis Kelce does that is beautiful is that he runs routes to beat coverages, and him and Patrick Mahomes are on the same page. And we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast before, but Logan is doing that now with Sam, and that is cool. That's really cool, and I think that's going to lead to a lot of trust. Like when Sam's in trouble, it's not like I'm looking around. It's like, where's Logan? I'm throwing the ball, and Logan more often than not bodies the guy out, makes a nice catch, and makes a play for him. So
Yeah.
I think, again, not the twitchiest or the fastest guy in the whole world, but a big guy with good hands who feels zones well and has been very productive through these, 9 practices. So
Yeah, I know it's cliche, but he's a former quarterback, and he
right,
definitely plays like it at times, where he's got that understanding of zone, of leverage. Hey, defender's here. I have to angle my body this way. I have to run to this spot. I need to, set my hands to here to get targeted. Like in the same that we talked about, Brissett has this ability to really dot, balls away from leverage and throw with, NFL caliber precision. Like Logan is kind of that as a target.
right.
I guess the best way I can describe it, he understands exactly where he needs to be to shield a guy. And the amount of times he's caught balls with guys trying to come through him is very high, even in the two
Yep.
practices that I went to. And I will add, for him to do that while coming back from the ACL, and I know obviously he was, he's back at this point basically,
Right.
but that's the kind of stuff that's hard. Like ACL injuries, what you fear is like that quick stop and, too much pressure going forward on your knee. And for a guy to be draped all over your back as you hit a comeback and to have the body control to be upright and do the proper, kind of things you need to do with your body to shield, like that's a lot. That's an intense ask. And he has done that extremely well. And I think that's great. I think it shows the kind of the reason that he's still here, right? The reason they didn't cut
Yeah.
him is because he's still their best option. Has Cole Turner flashed? Sure. Has Curtis Hodges flashed? Sure. Bates does something kind of different. They've had obviously
He's been
lost.
good too. He's
Yeah,
been good.
they've lost Armani Rogers, which really stinks because I thought he could be so special and dangerous. But really, like it's not Kansas City where Kelsey's the special guy and the receivers just have to do enough. The
Right.
special guys here are the receivers. You want a tight end who you can just solidly rely on to do his job, and Logan Thomas seems to be fitting that to an absolute T.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect characterization, and in this kind of only passing environment, like it's been tough, man. It's been tough for the receivers. The windows have been really tight. Forbes, St-Juste, Fuller, Percy Butler, Forrest have done a great job. Quan has done they've done a great job of matching concepts. And so some of that deep stuff hasn't, like we talked about, hasn't been great. And so Logan Thomas has been the benefit of that. And I do think it helps that he's a big body and you can see him from like the moon damn near. So I really think he's positioned himself to go in to have a really good training camp and show why he deserves to be a bigger part of this offense. And you mentioned Curtis, or you mentioned Cole. Cole's the same thing, done a really nice job. And I think when you look at the utilization patterns of practice, you see that EB and this offensive staff understand that as well. They had a 14 personnel package out there the other day, twice, in the red zone, and with a Gibson, and it feels like that's something that's real. That those guys can win one-on-ones, you can find separation and make plays with those big bodies. So, I think all those guys are going to be a part of this. Logan especially, but Cole's going to get touches. He's been great on like choices and snags, and had a really nice catch on a double move, which we didn't talk about, but I think that was the second week, the second practice. He got like a little out and up, like beat the line, beat a corner, did a great job, man. So that whole group to me is one of the most compelling groups because I think they just allow you, they give you so many advantages. They give you plus advantage in the run game. They give you plus advantage in the pass game if the defense is matching and running personnel. Like think about, I don't know how you don't match 14 personnel with goal line. And if you match with goal line and you come out and empty, you've got a defensive end trying to cover one of those guys, and that's just not good football, right? So I'm very excited about the potential of that group and how EB seems to be using them, and obviously there's a lot of time left, a lot of training camp, a lot of growth. Got to put the pads on. How does Curtis Hodges look with the pads on? How does Cole look with the pads on? But very excited for that group.
Yeah, a lot of camp to go. There's an entire run game to install and see how they look as blockers because that's obviously critically important. And then there's roster decisions to be made. You can't do 14 personnel if you don't have 4 tight ends.
Correct.
And not having 4 tight ends is how most NFL teams operate. Most teams have 3. So these are the big questions, but also the versatility of these guys is going to allow for some different things. You see how they do on special teams, that's going to matter for some of these guys. So these are the, Bieniemy can come up with all the things he wants. They've got to eventually field a 53, and some of what they can do is going to be impacted by that. Not to put a buzzkill on it, but just something to keep in the back of everyone's mind.
And they do have a precedent of keeping 4. They kept 4 last year, kept 4 the year before. They seem to understand the value of it. They just haven't used it. And I'm not saying this is going to be an every play thing. Let's make sure that's perfectly clear. But it's a nice change up to what you're really good at, especially in the red zone where you do play a lot of goal line. So, again, cautiously optimistic. That group has been a lot of fun to watch. They've all been pretty productive. I mean, Sam 48 on your show talked about the touchdowns. Curtis had one, Logan had one, Bates had one. That group's been very, 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 very consistently productive, and kudos to them because obviously the tight end coach is now helping with the offensive line, Juan Castillo, and then Storm has done a good job of coming in there and getting everybody coached up. So credit to that whole group. They've been really to me. And I know I'm biased, whatever, but they've been one of the standout groups for training camp.
Love it. Other guy you wanted to talk about before we hit the defense is Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, man. I'm excited.
What have you seen from him?
I'm so excited for him, dude. Like, everyone talks about he's the receiver, he's this, he's really just a good space player that can catch the football. And we've been kind of waiting and like hoping for something to come along that for someone to utilize him in a dynamic way, and it just hasn't happened. It hasn't come to fruition that way, which has been super frustrating for him. But the screen, you mentioned that's an explosive play, getting in the football in space. He's running choices now. He's got to work on that skill set a little bit, kind of that super sudden, but he's getting those opportunities. The other day, in the red zone, they're in like a snug 2-man set. So like, there's an F receiver and an X receiver over there. I think it was Kurt. It might have been Logan and Terry, and Gibson is offset in the gun to that side, and he is so fast that when he got out in that route, like they ran 3 verticals, and he from the backfield, it looked like they were all on the same level. And I'm like, that is a true receiver set there, but it looks like you can run the ball from it, and you can run the ball from it. And he caught the football and did a great job catching a vertical. So I just look at him and I'm like, I'm excited for how EB seems to be thinking about using him. And developing that skill set that we've all been asking for. And, Fred Smoot brought this up on the show that, like there's no such thing as like kind of a 3-headed monster in the backfield with regards to touches, because there's not enough run touches to go around. But if Gibson ends up with 30 catches and 40 carries, like that's not a bad year for him, and that's a very productive season. So I'm excited for him. They seem to kind of be evolving their thought process to kind of maximize him. And just like that tight end group, I think he's a guy that's going to really, really benefit from the creative mind of Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, definitely. Just the more pieces you can move, the better. I mean, him and Samuel seem like the two guys that are, and we talked about it. It was like, who's the gadget player? And like Curtis fits that more because when we think about those types of players, it's like, oh, that's unexpected. You break the huddle in 11. Now Curtis in the backfield, and you're in what's really 21, or you were, you didn't have any running backs in the game, and now you got Curtis back there, and you got two tight ends in, and you're able to run it. So there's like all kinds of different things that you can do with the guy like that. But I think that what makes the Kansas City offense so special, besides Mahomes and besides Kelsey, is their ability to generate space. And so if you were Antonio Gibson and you were a space player, having a guy who knows how to create space seems like a good guy to be your coach. And it just always strikes me when I watch Kansas City how open everybody feels all the time. And sometimes it's because Mahomes runs around and is able to throw an underhand pass left-handed to a guy who's just done a good job in the scramble drill. But there's so much of that offense that's on time, on target, and open. And that, I think that gets me super excited. And if I'm Gibson, I spend the next couple of weeks also watching a lot of Jerick McKinnon tape, because that dude had 9 receiving touchdowns last year. 9 receiving touchdowns as a running back. So
that should be great.
That would be, I think if Antonio Gibson has 9 touchdowns this season, the Commanders will be doing okay.
I agree. And,
bold take.
Bold take. And the other thing I think to kind of supplement that point about creating space, they also speak to skill sets. And so we're not asking Gibson to do something that he can't do. We're asking him to do something he can do. We're not asking Logan Thomas to do something he can't do, or any of those other guys, right? And I think that is something that gets, in addition to the space thing, gets me really fired up, is we are finding what people are good at. Like Jahan, for example. Jahan has been excellent in the slot here, running choices, running kind of short intermediate stuff. And that was something I thought he would be doing more last year, but he didn't. And so everyone's getting magnified by what Eric's brought. And I think that is something that obviously it's early, but when training camp comes, I hope that continues, and, into the preseason, into the joint practices.
Yeah, we send our prayers up to the football gods that it goes even beyond that into the regular season. Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command. First, why don't you like it? It lets other people know that it was good, and then they should watch it too. And Logan, we have a new exclusive home for full episodes.
We do. 1067 The Fans YouTube page. Go check it out and please subscribe.
Yeah, do what Logan said.
Do it.
Very, very smart.